So sometimes you want to do certain things, not just in terms of initializing the variable like this. So maybe you want to perform some calculation, or you want to execute a piece of code and then have the final variable being defined like this. So how do you do it? Well, with the static keyword, we can use the static block initialization, and it goes like this: static, and then you pass curly brackets in here. Now, what I want to do is I want to say south, and then I'm going to say static initialization, and let me just say start column, and then duplicate this, and I'm going to say end. So now maybe the variable right here, so count, let's just say count is basically public static int count, just like this, without defining a default value. And maybe you want to basically perform some calculation. You can basically have a for loop. You can execute any piece of code inside of this static block. Now, just to be clear, so here there shouldn't be any return statement, so you can't really perform any return statement. Also, there is no arguments whatsoever in here, and this piece of code is executed by the JVM when the class is called. So in here, let me just say count. So here, this will be a very simple piece of code that I want to do in here, right? So usually what people use this is maybe they want to establish a connection to the database, and then perform a query, and then assign the value for whatever static field you have. Now here, I said static field. If this is an instance field, you can't do this. And I'll show you how to go around this. But here you are only able to work with static fields inside of this static initialization block. So to be honest, this is it. Now, if I go to main, and in here, let's just say new, and then person, and let's just run this. So I want you to see something. So let's just run this, and you can see that we have start, static initialization, and then end. So in between what we actually did, so let me just actually not even say new. So here I want to say person dot and then count, right? So let's just say south in here. So I don't want to create a new instance, but you'll see that still this piece of code will be executed. So if I run it, you can see that start and then end of static initialization and then 0. So you saw that I didn't even have to create an instance of this person class, but still whenever the class is called, basically that static block is initialized. Now, obviously you can have multiple static blocks. So here you can also have a static block inside of main in here. So if I say south and then static in main, so static initializer in main, if I run this, you'll see the order. So here, so static initializer in main, so this is what the JVM initially starts with. Then we go off into the person, so we invoke this class, and then he executes this block of code. Now, what's also interesting is, so let's just go inside here, and within basically this constructor, so the default one, let's just say default constructor. So I just want you to see that this will be invoked, but I want to show you the order, right? So here, let's just now create a new instance. So new and then person, and we don't have to print anything at this point. Just like that, let's just run it and have a look. So the static initializer in main is first invoked, then the static within the person, then the static within then the static block within person class is invoked, and then finally the constructor is invoked. And it's very important that you remember this order. And to be honest, this is it. So if you have any questions on this topic, please do let me know. But don't worry, because I'm going to show you examples of code where we're going to be using the static initializer. So sometimes you might want to basically have maybe an array. So private static final, and then person, and this will be a person array, and let's just say people, for example. And now I'm going to say equals to no, for example, right? Now inside here, we can actually initialize. So we can say people, or actually, because it's final, let's just basically remove the final keyword from here for a second. So let's just say people equals to new, and then person, and we can assign the size, right? So in here, just like that. And maybe we want to then initialize, or we can have some business logic in here, and we'll touch on business logic and what it means later. So business logic, and you can have maybe a for each, basically through I, and this will be maybe people dot length, and you can populate this right here with some random data, so on and so forth. But you can see how this is one use case for this block. So now this variable right here is a global variable for this class called main. So as I said, I'm going to give you examples throughout this course, and you'll see how to use the static block. And if you have any other questions, please do let me know. Otherwise, let's move on.